Alrighty, hello every folks, and good morning. Today we're going to talk about unit transformations. Now, unit transformations can mean a lot of things, and there's kind of a lot of little semi-related topics that I'd like to cover at the same time. So bear in mind, we're not just going to be talking about Ogre Blade transformations today, or Liches, or Angels, or any of that, but I just wanted to talk about the various different ways that you can swap your units to different classes for various kind of beneficial results, as it were, or in the case of something like this, sometimes you just feel like making an abomination, so why the hell not? Anyway, so let's go ahead and get started here. So on the more basic end, we've got cases like giving impossible elements to different units. Now, basically, there's just a lot of kind of transformations that can be used just for the purpose of transferring very minor stuff around. So, for example, you can't normally get a dark element on something like a Hawkman, and technically speaking, having a Hawkman Archer has always been sort of the kind of optimal Jiggler set user, because they're going to have their flight already built in, and they're going to have a case where, you know, they're going to be able to fly around everywhere. They don't have to give up their 2 slots in order to fire. So, for example, if I go over to my other Jiggler set guy over here and I wanted him to fly, well, then I'd have to give up a ring slot, or I'd have to give up a foot slot. Now, ideally, should I be using Snipe Gators on him? Yes, it would be dramatically more useful. But in most cases, you know, stuff like this, you know, I've already got all their items on here, he's inbuilt in flying, but he can't switch over to Dark Element, and he can't switch over to a class that can be a Dark Element. Or can he? As you noticed earlier, over here we've got Burb 2.0, who just switched into a Lich, and if I were to go ahead and switch him back to an Archer, he would remain as a Dark Element, in order to kind of improve that Jiggler set bow situation. Now, obviously, this is going to be using a particularly rare item for going and, you know, giving a 10% boost on only one unit, but either way, it's still something you can technically do. I know, personally, I've kind of found myself in this position where I have more Ring of the Deads than I know what to do with, very literally. The only reason that this guy became a Lich is somehow I ended up getting 3 drops over the course of 2 Palace of the Dead runs. I don't know how the hell this keeps happening, but either way, it was enough to make that guy into a free Lich. I still have an extra ring left over, and this guy can go ahead and use Reflection whenever he wants. It's a little bit bizarre, but hey, luck's going to be like that sometimes. So, let's go ahead and continue on here. So, this is on the very minor end. I'm pretty sure most folks are pretty well aware at this point that yes, if you switch somebody to a class that is, say, locked into a particular element or able to access a particular element, you can give them something that they otherwise wouldn't be able to use. Like, for example, right here, we have a Donalto Beast Tamer that likes to shoot lasers. I mean, whether or not this is useful for you is entirely up to you. If you, for example, just find a weapon that no one else really seems to have much of a use for, this might be a fun way to just kind of make that happen. In his particular case, I just figured, you know what, this guy definitely feels like God slapping some people, so he became a Beast Tamer. He got his laser punches right over here, and I figured, you know what, I'm sure, given his background, I'm sure there's definitely some questionable things in his closet, so we'll go ahead and put that over there. It just all seemed pretty appropriate, and, well, you know, while he's channeling the beast within, he can channel the beast without. Either way, you can have some fun with this stuff, is the idea. But let's go ahead and get into the proper transformations here. So the stuff that you can do with Liches, Angels, and specifically the Ogre Blade. So, for those that haven't gotten into Coda and stuff like that, you can transform your units into, like I said, just other stuff. Now, stuff like a Lich or a Divine Knight are going to be great in their own right. However, due to the fact that you're essentially transforming them in the middle of a fight, there's a funny little quirk that they're going to actually retain their equipment, even if they can't use their skills anymore, if they were to transform mid-battle there. So literally all it is you take this Ring of the Dead, and you just transform them in the middle of a fight. Now, funny thing is, this essentially means that you can transfer Lich skills and Angel skills onto any other unit, or rather any other generic unit, using something like the Ogre Blade. So, like right here, what we've essentially done is, for no apparent reason, I've decided to go and transfer... by the way, I should clarify one thing real quick. When I say any other unit, it's like mostly any other unit, basically anything roughly humanoid shaped. So like the familiars are still something that you can go and use, but at the same time you can't, for example, transfer everything over to an octopus, which would have been amazing. Frankly, that was my dream going into this project, that like, maybe they took that limitation off of beasts, but no, you can't turn into a beast, unfortunately, which is a bummer because the beasts can talk and stuff like that, but I guess they're not holy enough, who knows. Anyway, yeah, whenever Ogre Battle 8 comes out, I expect to have a upgraded version of the Ogre Blade that can let you, I don't know, make a griffin that can, like, friggin' do double attack or something. Anyway, so one of the benefits of this is that you can also transfer over the mental stats of that unit, allowing them to, functionally speaking, level up a second time. Now, in this case, this was just a random fairy that I went and picked up, so just kind of for the hell of it, so there wasn't really a whole lot of benefit out of this. But you can transfer, again, whatever the unit is currently, or whatever class the unit currently is, and just kind of merge it into something else. So let's go ahead and reload that save file real quick, and we'll go ahead and cover this a little. So, oh, they're still talking about the Tactics Ogre in the background. So, like, let's say we wanted to take Mr. Burb 2.0 over there, and we wanted to turn him into the best warrior possible. We want a warrior wizard. Why not? You know what? Let's just have some fun with this. Or do we want to use tomato for that? Maybe we'll use tomato. Okay, we'll use tomato because they were the current example. Where's my dude that is currently holding that ring? There you go. So we'll take that off of you, and we'll go ahead and pop this over to you right now. So let's go ahead and pop it in place right here. Actually, we should probably get rid of all of your items, considering that you're going to be, well, you're going to be losing a lot of them. Just so you know, the Ogre Blade is consumed on use. When you go and do this, you would have to go down to Palace of the Dead to go get a new one whenever you did something like this. And for those unfamiliar with the process, I'm just going to... Don't worry, I am getting to how we actually pick up one of these in the first place. So just give me a sec there. Anyway, so we go ahead, we give him his ring, we give him the Ogre Blade, and we'll go ahead and... Where do we have that? Right here. There we go. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to go find a kind of low-level fight for him to get to. Now, the easiest way to do this is basically just to go back in time. So what we're going to do is go back all the way to Chapter 1, or skip through Coda entirely, and it's hard to select the right one. Anyway, so if you want to have the most kind of intelligence and mind out of this, because those are the stats they're going to be carrying over, the easiest way to do this is to just basically go back to Tynemouth Hill and pick up one of the units here. Now, this doesn't mean that you're limited to this by any means. In fact, in many cases, you're probably going to have potentially an easier time. Who do we? I guess we have to do all of this stuff. In many cases, you know, there's going to be better ways to get this all done. This is definitely not the only means to do it. But basically, anything that needs mind or intelligence and or wants skills from another class can go ahead and try to do this kind of thing. Where on earth did I put him? For some reason, I put this water unit like right in the middle of several ice units. So every time I'm looking over, I can never find the guy, and yet I keep not moving him because for some reason that concept is funny to me. Anyway. So, essentially, yeah, you just pick the lowest level unit that you can, because what this weapon does is that it causes you to swap bodies with the unit in question. Again, carrying over the mind and intelligence of the unit in question, but they're also not going to be... Just leave you facing this way. But they're also not carrying over the physical stats. They get the physical body of the next unit there. And okay, thank you, Canopus. I think you're trying a little bit too hard there, buddy. We need to go take his equipment off. Let's go ahead and fix that real quick. But yeah, you're just body swapping into that other unit. So whatever level they are at that time is what you end up getting. Like, technically speaking, you can cause units to spawn at level 1, but the downside is that you would be at level 1 as well. So the ideal situation here, and this is one of those few cases where levels do in fact completely matter, the ideal situation here is basically just to find a, like, level 2, 3, what have you, like right here, and essentially just body swap with them out of a max level unit. So like right here, he's at 50. So we'll go ahead and let's say, let's go over to his equipment, unequip all. Well, he's probably going to go use his lobber bombs, isn't he? Or no, good, I'm currently out of stock of them. For reasons, let's just unequip everything. There we go. You'll definitely be a problem later as well. Always remember to take your stuff off. As you saw right there, they will always, always, always find a way to screw you if and when you're running into this process. But anyway, so okay, let's talk about how to actually get the Ogre Blade. For those unfamiliar, in order to get the Ogre Blade, you have to beat Blackmore. This is a repeatable boss fight in Palace of the Dead. Essentially, Blackmore and his his Lich King and Lich Queen each have a 50% chance to drop the Ogre Blade, as well as a 5% chance to drop a piece of the Ogre set. Now, if you've unlocked the shortcuts to the area, that's actually a pretty relatively quick trek in order to go down there and pick up more. So if you've ever heard somebody kind of talking about grinding out Ogre Blades and wondering how on earth they managed to do that when it's a unique item, that's basically how. You use one, you turn somebody into some kind of abomination, or, for example, take that same unit and turn them into several abominations, and then from there you just kind of keep transferring skills around. Now, in terms of the stuff that you can transfer, it's any case where a unit can be using a two-hander. So, for example, all warrior skills, all dragoon skills, all terror knight skills, all juggernaut skills, as well as lich and angel knight that you can just basically put on whoever the hell you feel like. So either way, that's all well and amusing there. Let's see, what do we want to do with you? Probably nothing. Skip through some cutscenes here real quick. Now, the fight itself is while not the easiest thing in the world, it's definitely not the hardest thing in the world. Basically, you just go in, you kill those 3 targets, and you go from there. Actually, I really should have used this Ring of the Dead on him already, because we definitely don't want to be giving that up. As I say, as if I'm not immediately going to reload this, because this is not the one that I want to stick with. Now, this does mean that you can do a lot of fairly sweaty things if you decide to proceed forward down this road. I mean, the obvious thing that the obvious conclusion that, you know, myself and many others came to pretty much immediately is like, well, you have that whole, like, patriarch versus shaman argument. You know, you can just give nature power as well as, like, 400 extra intelligence to a patriarch, and it takes less time than the actual shaman side quest, right? Anyway, so we'll cover that when we get to it, but just so you know, yeah, this is just something that you can do. Alright, let's go ahead and sort that out real quick. In case you're wondering, there's nothing optimal about his setup. I'm just training him with random weapons. It doesn't really particularly matter at this point. Realistically, all we're trying to do is just get a hold of this unit right here. So he's currently a Lich. Like I said earlier, they will retain their items, but that is to say they'll end up ditching their items at the end of the fight. But you can still hold on to the Ogre Blade while you're in this condition here. So we're going to go ahead and transfer some Lich skills over to this guy right here. So, at this point, he has become a regular basic soldier with Lich skills. And by the way, those will just permanently stick to that unit, so whatever you decide to change them into, they will retain those skills. This isn't like a one-and-done kind of deal. Also, he has no chance of actually killing his old body. I was curious about 2 things. Whenever transforming, just so you know, cards and buffs do stay on the original unit. Not that there's really a ton of, use necessarily for going back and, trying to get those buffs and cards or anything in a situation like this, where most times you'll be coming in completely overpowered anyway. But in case you were curious, yes, that stuff does still remain stuck in the original unit. Anyway, we'll go ahead and get all of our experience on our one guy here, as we do. Yes, they're up to 18 immediately, and we'll go ahead and use charms to finish off the rest. As far as stuff you can do with this, obviously there's a lot of different ways. Like, you can use lizard classes, you can use familiar classes, you can, like I said, use anything that is vaguely humanoid. As long as it isn't like a monster or a dragon, you can transform them into that, which again can have a lot of different implications depending on your situation. So like right here, we've basically got a soldier that now has nature power, or nature's touch. I still want to call it nature power, no matter what. I just always do. And we'll go ahead and, let's say, give him a reflection too, because why not? We'll give him engulf, because he's got engulf as well, and he's got his bows. So we'll just go ahead and take this dude, and let's say... Actually, no, I wanted to do like a casty kind of thing. So let's say we give him like a Fafnir over here. We'll go ahead and give him... Who's carrying the rune axe right now? Is that Azelston who's got the rune axe? Yeah, no, you don't anymore. So we'll go ahead and pop that on Mr. Tomato over here. And we'll go ahead and just give him a couple of casting items just for the hell of it. So there we go. We got that right there. We're going to go ahead and give him... Let's say... Do we want to go Stinky Set on him? What's going to give him the most intelligence? He's actually Stinky Set has some pretty decent bonuses on it. I'll give him some Worm Scale. We're just going to up his casting stats as much as we can here. Damascus has a pretty solid mind bonus, as well as some Alluring. The Alluring set is probably the most ideal for this kind of stuff. But we'll just give him some Spark Guards just kind of for the hell of it. Why not? And let's see. Kind of, do we want to just give him a luck ring? Sure, let's just give him a luck ring, whatever. So, we've now got a guy that is an extended range reflection nature touch caster here. Actually, Fafnir's not going to work for this. Let me see. What else do I have? I've got the Leskers. The Leskers might be perfect for this, actually. So we'll go ahead and take that real quick. I need to borrow your sword, lady. I'm sorry. I know. You're a long timer. You've been around for a while. You get your pick of weapons, except for this time. This is an alternate universe. Don't worry. And so we then just go ahead and pop this on you. And now he's got his spell casts. Probably ideal would have been 2 of these. What other items do we got on hand? We got some, like, a pinion blade over here. Got some tornadoes. You know what? That'll give him some AoEs. Why not? Maybe some meteor strikes? Nah. I feel like just using 2 of a particular elemental weapon type would be ideal for this, just because you're giving them more stuff. So, like, if you gave them 2 Leskers or something like that. Again, bear in mind, this is mostly just for the sake of it's fun, so don't take it too seriously, but it's just a fun thing that you can do. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and do all of this stuff with him. And let's go ahead and throw him into... Actually, let's just go ahead and max out his level here a little bit, just to show you how much of a difference this makes. Because as you saw, he's at level 3, and he already has intelligence and mind that is, you know, pretty well into the hundreds, while all the rest of his stats were still in double digits. So we'll just go ahead and charm him up all the way here. Now, depending on the unit in question, this was a absolutely bottom of the barrel stat-wise, just basic guy, who never really trained as a caster or anything. Like, he literally was, I think he was like an archer until I turned him into a lich, just kind of for the hell of it. So your numbers are likely going to be way higher than this. You know, I just always like to show things off in their lowest possible state. So, anyway, this means that he'll now essentially have casting stats higher than the whole rest of the party, while having impossible skills on a, you know, class that has no business doing this kind of stuff, but hey, whatever. So obviously do with this what you will. This is something that's, honestly, I feel like it's way more fun just to make fun builds out of this. So let's say we went and decided to do, I know that this is going to be a complete washout, but screw it, it's fun. So now he'll be able to throw out, you know, insane numbers despite being a basic soldier guy. That is to say, with magic and stuff, as you do. All right, Rain, calm down. All right. It's funny how when they zoom in on the skeleton, he always looks like he has clogs on this particular one. Anyway, so this transformation is useful for a lot of things. Like I said, you can get super sweaty with it. Just put kind of nature's touch on whatever the hell you feel like, which is fine. You know, that's all well and good if you're just going for casters, but there's a lot of different approaches you can take. Like, personally, I find putting reflection on a fairy pretty funny. Or, for example, if you want to go put, like, let's say, I mean, arguably, I would say probably the fastest caster that there is would actually not even be the Patriarch option in this case, but just to go ahead and drop a probably drop Nature's Touch on a basic elemental caster, just your basic wizards and whatnot, just because conserve RT as well as the tier 4s at this point, combined with all this other stuff, would be absolutely insane in terms of just like very quick actions while still hitting ridiculously hard and all of that kind of stuff. So just kind of something to consider there. As far as other skills, you could always put what I did in my first run, put Lament of the Dead onto a ninja with tier 2 ninja summons, which aren't amazing on their own, but they're an ability that's going to be pretty darn impressive when you're going and you know, using this Lament ninja on there, because you just send them forward with Steel Stance on, they turn on their Lament, they hit stuff with Fear, they back away with because of Lament and stuff like that, hit stuff with summons due to their way higher stats all of a sudden. They're going to be really nutty, is the idea. That they're going to be pretty much melting anything instantly with that combination. Again, the point isn't to be optimal, the point is to have fun. So either way, that is how it is. Now, again, personally, I find making the wizard soldier the funniest possible approach to this, but you can do whatever you'd like. Lament of the Dead Fairy, why the hell not? Dragon Slayer Fairy, also why not? Technically already possible, but hey, whatever. You know, just you can have fun with this stuff is the idea. If you didn't know, Dragon Fang plus Worm Scale armor plus some Worm Scale sleeves or the helmet or what have you on a basic fairy, whether just kind of however you end up doing that, will end up giving you that Dragon Slayer situation. Now, as you see right here, his particular attacking strength here isn't crazy high, but if he were to use all of his casts, due to his really high brain stats, I mean, it's not like he's going to be doing anything other than one-shotting these guys anyway, but you get the idea. He do good with brain shooty things. I meant to show this off in a more leveled out scenario, but screw it, at this point we're just kind of on this map now. So at this point we're just going to go ahead and throw a rock at you over here. I love how... Man, I timed this amazingly. I had the washer set for a timed wash, and apparently waited for exactly right now until it got going. So I apologize if you can hear that noise in the background. Any darn ways. Let's talk about some other transformation quirks while we're kind of at it. So you can also do this with the Divine Knight, just transfer over those Divine Knight skills over to somebody else. So if you wanted, for example, a Divine Knight with Phalanx, you could essentially take that original Divine Knight, transfer them over to a regular human knight, and then give them, and again, you use the transformation trick, you transform into an angel in the middle of a fight. You transfer over their Angel Knight skills into a regular knight. They've got really high mind at this point, and they've got really high... It's kind of intelligence and stuff like that. It ends up working particularly well in their case because they can now take those original Divine Knight abilities and basically have guaranteed AoE charm wherever they go, while also having Phalanx. One of the big downsides of any Ogre Bladed unit is that they're still going to be just as flimsy as any other unit on the field, so you're still going to want to boost their defense through some other means. So this essentially means that, yes, even though you've got incredible godlike power on this unit, they're still incredibly weak. Now, the funny part is you can also do some other stuff with this as well. Let's go ahead and skip over this real quick, because there's other transformations you can do too, and that next step on the list would be the Snapdragon. So if at any point you find that you're bored of your new Ogre Bladed unit, you can also go ahead and transform them over into a weapon. So if you ever picked up any of the weapons going on in Palace of the Dead, and you were wondering what the deal is with them, the general idea here is fairly simple. Whatever weapon they use will carry over the properties of the character in question. I think it's something along the lines of like 10% of their stats rounded down or something along those lines. As well as carrying over their recovery time. So this basically means that if you're doing this, a lot of the time it's best to wait for something like the Crest of Fire to pop up, so that you can have a really, really lightweight weapon. Now, essentially, the other equipment isn't actually carried into the equation, so basically it's just speed and weight well, those are both basically the same thing, but it's the unit's class, as well as I think it's just the class, actually. So the unit's class is in the unit's element. That's what it was. That's what I'm thinking of. So, like, let's say I wanted to make, like, let's say the Vignetta's talons weren't dropping, so I just wanted to go make my own dang Wind Fist, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. We did that. We're going to go into training here, and we're just going to go ahead and throw this dude into training along with Denim here. And so we'll go ahead and transform them into a punchy weapon, because why not? Now, yes, I know, two-handed weapon, this is... let's not get into the specifics over why this isn't the most optimal setup in the world. This is just to show that this is a thing that you can technically do. And so any weapon that's got a Snapdragon effect, you basically use it on that unit. That unit has now been killed, and they've become an item. So we can go equip that item on somebody, and it will keep their keep part of their stats. It'll keep their weight as part of the weapon. Cursed weapons are just kind of funky in general, and we'll be able to well, swing them around and stuff. Whether or not this is useful for you depends entirely on kind of the stuff in question. So, like right here, they were a human unit, they were a wind unit, they had a really high mind and intelligence score, so this meant that the actual scaling bonus on the weapon is really high, but their bonuses, their everything else, are going to be determined entirely by their stats, so obviously whatever you can feed to the unit, the better they'll be, but you can get the highest elemental bonuses possible when going and doing it in this particular method. So cursed weapons can be some of the worst or some of the best weapons, depending entirely on what they are. So, in this case, you may notice also that they have a weight of none. So this also means for something like the For something like the Cursed Fist over here, one of the best approaches would actually be to use it strictly as a pincer tool. So in this case, they would essentially, while carrying around, it costs nothing, but to actually swing it is about equivalent to that of shooting a gun, give or take. So like middle of the road gun, I guess you could say. Something like the long gun takes 52 RT to fire. It's kind of nutty, but either way, they cost nothing to actually carry around. So this means that by themselves they're going to be pretty reasonably fast. So if you use something like a preempt and a pincer attack in order to make them attack, you know, kind of indirectly here, or just use your finishers, basically everything other than a basic attack, these weapons can be really, really handy. So again, depends entirely on what you're trying to get done, but this basically allows for a really funky weapon that does slow you down quite a bit if you use it normally, but if you preempt, if you pincer attack, you're going to get a lot more out of it. Alright, so anyways, hopefully that helped to make sense of all of this stuff a little bit. To go back and circle back to the whole, like, zombie thing a little bit, there's oftentimes this kind of beginner notion of zombies being the sort of superior state in all situations that tends to come up, and it really depends, just like everything else, just so we're 100% clear on that. As far as zombie states go, in something like early Palace of the Dead, yeah, they basically got pretty free reign, but that's not to say it's completely free. Bear in mind, anything from pumpkins to basic clerics, to later on anything like angel knights or what have you, or necromancers, will absolutely exercise them no trouble whatsoever. They have almost no way to avoid it. I really doubt your avoidance skill is high enough to be able to actually dodge that. Even best case scenario, you're still looking at like 80% odds. So just so you're aware, yes, there's a lot more units than you may be realizing that actually can permanently kill off your zombie units. Again, they are useful for a huge chunk of Palace of the Dead, but there's quite a few cases, I'd say like 10% of the maps, where there will still be exorcists, as well as the later maps will carry a lot more means of dealing with them. And additionally, oftentimes we'll have so much offense coming your way that just reviving a unit to have them take an instant turn is going to be more useful than something like the Undead. Again, this all depends. It's all situational. But either way, so just so you know, they're good at maps where there's a lot of stall potential, but if for example, there's a lot of offense, there isn't a lot of stall potential, they can be a lot more difficult to deal with in regular living units. And if you try to clear out San Bronza, just about every single map up there has like 3 or 4 different forms of exorcisms to get rid of your units, so definitely wouldn't bother with that. Additionally, if you wanted to stall out the final fights with something like zombies, they do also carry a lot of counters to them. Pretty much any basic soldier with a sword will carry a why am I suddenly blanking on the name? This thing that Erasion. There we go, the eraser. I don't know how I'm suddenly forgetting that, but whatever. Either way, so just so you know, they are definitely still going to have a lot of weaknesses, especially as you carry on through Coda. You may notice that many of the units that previously were zombie units, I transferred back into normal. And for those that didn't know, you can use either Charms of Remission or an Angel to transform somebody back into a normal unit. Whereas if you wanted a zombie unit, you can use something like a Lich or Necromancer to turn them into a zombie. So, for example, Hunter Micro over here was originally not meant to be a zombie, but I was going through POTD. There was a particularly rough map, and the Lich just happened to be carrying Living Corpse on him, and so he was just sort of zombified before he bled out, and just sort of ended up staying in the state since then. Just because it's particularly spooky to have an unkillable thing with Coquettish Kiss here. Yeah, the Coquettish is hilarious on these things, just gotta say. And it's especially spooky in their case because they get knocked out very easily, but then you park them in the back row, like you just Leroy Jenkins their way to the back line, and then you get about 2/3 of the way through the fight and they just start finishing stuff off by attacking them from behind. It's nice, it's amusing. Alright. Oh, and by the way, one more thing, just so you're aware, there's nothing stopping you from using those transformations on your unique units, depending on what they are. So if you wanted, for example, to turn Mr. Hamilton into a Lich, you absolutely could. There are, again, some limitations, like the Divine Knight transformation is absolutely generic only, but if you wanted to do something like the Lich, you can still do that on pretty much everybody. Unfortunately, you can't turn an octopus into a Lich. That would be particularly amusing, but Oh well, I really wanted to make a reflection octopus, but oh well. Such is not to be the case. And if we go over to the class list real quick, again, as a reminder, if you're using the Ogre Blade thing, if you wanted to get Vigorous Attack, Mighty Strike, Double Strike, or Pincer, you can get that off the Warrior. If you wanted to get also Pincer, but also wanted to get Dragon Slayer, Beast Slayer, Beastbane, Dragonbane, or Dragon Scale, you can get that off the Dragoon. One thing I should mention is that while it will carry over their skill ranks, it doesn't give them new weapon access. So they still will be limited to the weapons that the class can normally use. Additionally, if you wanted Terrifying Impact, Lament of the Dead, Squash for some reason, also, actually no, they can't use Pincer, can they? Or if you want, no, they can use Pincer, I think. I forget, let's double check that real quick. I never use Pincer on a Terror Knight, but it's very possible that it's there. Where's Sherry at? You got Pincer, don't you? No, they don't. Well, you can make one, or no, yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. It's right here. So yeah, Steadfast, Pincer, Rampart, all of that kind of thing. It does allow for Rampart Aura to be transferred over to whatever the hell you'd like. So if any of this stuff, especially something like Concentration, sounds very useful for you, there you go. You got that there. Additionally, if you wanted, where's the Juggernaut? Not in that list, that's where that is. If we go over to the Jugger, if you wanted Intimidate, so for Intimidate, check, or Threaten, both really, really solid abilities. In fact, it's really funny that you can basically recreate the sort of Hamilton experience way before you get him by just going and using the Ogre Blade instead. It's faster. Anyway, unfortunately, they don't come with Dash. I wish that you could get Dash in one of these guys, but oh well. Anyway. Threaten, check, Intimidate, you know, really, really handy abilities. For example, shoving those onto a Phalanx Knight or something. And again, you can... Alrighty, so anyway, you can basically theorycraft your way through this however you'd like. There's a lot of different ways that you can potentially go and make something pretty darn ridiculous out of something like the Ogre trick, or through any of these other transformations. All of them are basically here just for you to kind of fiddle around with. Sometimes it's useful, sometimes it's kind of niche. It's oftentimes easy to get stuck in this mindset of something being like the perfect version of something, when in reality, you could pretty much make an argument for anything being the perfect version of anything. Like I mentioned earlier, technically speaking, you can go Jigla with you know, like let's say something like a Hawkman. It's like, oh, it's got inbuilt flying, it's got the dark element to get that 10% off the Jigla, it's got the Jiggy bonus. You know, technically that would be the best version, and then, you know, you could also just as easily make the argument to skip all of that and just say, yeah, yep, but also snipe, and also brimstone, and this dude's, you know, got some pretty nutty numbers too, so it depends entirely on what you're running into. Now, by the way, I should point this out because I do bring up the brimstone bow a lot. There's a lot of endgame bows with a lot of very particular bonuses, and crossbows too. I mean, you can get some pretty wild bonuses off these things. So realistically, in many cases, you might end up getting better results just kind of playing it straight, depending on your situation. Actually, that's not the one I meant to show off. Where is Flapjack at? I know I just saw him somewhere. I'm being really, really... there he is. There we go. So, for example, like in his case, like just due to the 30% plus an extra 10% in all situations, more or less this crossbow can just be seen as a like plus 40% bonus in pretty much every situation, while also absolutely destroying anything air related. And again, this obviously everything's going to depend. In other cases, maybe you want something that can maybe, you know, attack on different elements at once. Like, sure, at the same time I could go and switch this guy over to Earth, and, you know, then he counters both here, let's say, here, let's kind of look at this real quick. So like if I were to switch him to Earth, he would lose a little bit of his overall penetration, but he would end up, you know, potentially being good versus both lightning and versus air. But again, this is all situational kind of stuff. In his case, like his whole situation was built entirely on one-shot kill type of stuff, and also just kind of happened to be ice because I happened to have a spare whisker coat laying around, so I had a, you know, a random situation where this was just one item that happened to be here. I happened to roll a crossbow that perfectly matched this, and so it wound up being a comfortable build right here. There's not really anything too complicated that had to be put together there, whereas, for example, something over on this, not this guy, that's the same guy, or in his particular case, he's particularly ice just to get a little bit of extra penetration off of his elemental shortbow, where at the same time, most of the time he's actually attacking with a wind weapon or with any of his finishers. Just gives him a huge amount of counters to every element at once, and it's really funny to see those situations where this guy's just going in, and even on something like AI, will just be using a completely different attack every time that he's doing something. It just feels good to see. Just basically got a bonus against practically every element here. But anyway, again, all of these are just here to play around with, as you will. Some of them will still be impossible, just so you're aware. Like, for example, Ice Lich and Dark Griffin, as well as Dark Cockatrice, as well as any other variants of these. These ones are not something that are made with transformations. They're found in the wild. You know what, you can think of these as basically just the shinies of Tactics Ogre. Ice Lich is in Pirate's Graveyard Coda 1. The regular Dark Lich freezes in Coda. The Dark Griffin comes from Andorus. I know I've covered these recently, but these are just it just sort of fits with the topic, you know? So Dark Griffin comes with Andorus. Again, nothing really particularly too crazy optimal or anything about this guy. He's just going to do a little bit better with the stun breath skills. It's just, you know, it's kind of a unique unit to have on there because you can't normally make a Dark Griffin. You can make them every other element, and honestly, it's more practical to swap them out for the basic elements and just use their neutral moves and or use their wind shot or something. But either way, you do you. Obviously, everyone's going to have their own preferences for things. So y'all have yourselves a good one. Thank you for stopping by. Hopefully this all made a decent bit of sense. And yeah, let me know what kind of crazy nonsense you came up with for your transformation stuff.